Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about Punk for the first time here on the channel, as they've recently received support here in the form of Deer Note, as well as a few other cards as well. Now, we've not touched on Punk entirely sort of on the channel before, and it is something that I am going to be exploring more as we go along. I'm still just acquiring some of the cards. But it seems like a really fun and powerful archetype, to be honest. Now that I've had a little bit of exposure to it, I'm really looking forward to exploring it more. And what we're going to be exploring first is the Punk Blue Eyes deck that was suggested to me by several people in the comments. They linked me to a video where Team Samurai X1 did a deck profile on this deck, and they wanted me to give my sort of take on it. I tried playing it. I changed a few things to make it slightly more consistent, to give it a little bit more versatility. I don't know whether or not it's better or not, of course, that's entirely up to you, but this is the version of it we ended up landing on. It's pretty solid, honestly. I was pleasantly surprised by how effective the deck was. It's definitely not bulletproof, it's not going to be taking the meta by storm or anything like that, but it is definitely more than viable. If you were looking for a decent way to play Blue Eyes and you're sick of DPU Turbo, then this is definitely going to be one of the better ways of playing it, for sure. We were going on a sort of 50 to 60-ish win rate, so it's not, you know, like perfect, but at the same time, we're still learning the deck. We were still making changes to it over time, and it has been improving with the changes we've made, so it is more than likely something I'm going to visit again in the future. But I think for now, this is sort of what we're playing with and what I sort of settled on as potentially one of the better builds, but we'll see how time treats it. I am going to do a card for card deck profile at the end. Most of the gameplay here is entirely sort of combo oriented, so most of the combos and plays you're going to pick up from the gameplay itself. At the very end, I will go through the whole deck card for card, so you have an idea of what we're playing and why we're playing it. If you're new to the channel and you're interested in things like this, where we test out some sort of really cool decks or sort of meta strategies, especially rogue decks as well, we cover a lot of rogue content. If you're interested in all of that on our detailed deck breakdowns, feel free to subscribe and like the video if you do in fact enjoy what you're watching, and you can join the Discord if you want to get involved, give suggestions, take feedback, ask questions, anything like that. You can get involved in the Discord below as well, and contact myself as well as the near 100 members in our Discord about any deck that we've played on our channel before, or any deck you want to bring to us that maybe we haven't played before. And with that, let's get into game number one. Alrighty, getting into our game one here, and this is quite a decent hand. We're going to go Dictator of D here, tapping a Blue Eyes to summon itself. Then we're going to drop our Jet to summon our Jet, I do believe. Yep, out comes our Jet Dragon. Dictator of D is a broken starter card, it's amazing. We're going to ditch our two Foxy Tunes to summon Ziyaman directly from our deck, grabbing our third Foxy Tune. Now we're going to use Deer Note, revealing the Foxy Tune, summoning out Deer Note to our field. Now we're going to Synchro Summon off into the Chaos Ruler, which is one of the big plays you want to start off with. Chaos Ruler will check the top 5 cards of your deck and send them to the graveyard, but if there's a light or a dark monster among them, you get to add one of them to your hand. We are going to summon Foxy Tune back from the graveyard here as well, off of Deer Note's effect, which is an amazing effect, by the way. Level 8 extenders for days. We're going to grab Starleech Seifert here and add it to our hand. Now we're going to Exceed Summon into the Zombie Vampire. Now we could have used the Chaos Ruler as part of this Exceed Summon. We probably could have done that a little bit better, but either way, we're going to summon out our Whitestone, going into the Heretic Seals, or Heretic Spheres of Heavenly Seals or whatever. We're going to add Blue Eyes White Dragon to hand so we can bounce it back later on with our Plague Spreader. Now we can revive our Chaos Ruler, banishing a light and a dark to bring back our Chaos Dragon here, the Chaos Ruler. Now Plague Spreader is going to return the Blue Eyes to the top of the deck to summon itself out, so we can Synchro Summon into Baron de Fleur. Chaos Space is going to banish itself, bounce Chaos Ruler back to our extra deck to let us draw the Blue Eyes that we just put back on top of the deck. Then we're going to add the alternative White Dragon back to our hand. We'll now special summon it out to the field. Baron's going to pop the alternative White Dragon just to summon out the Jet Dragon in its place. And I do believe that, basically, yes, that calls our turn. So there you go, this is an example of some of the crazy combos you can do with this deck around the Zombie Vampire and the Chaos Ruler, being able to spam these level 8s out to the board super easily. We've got Negates, we've got Protection, we've got Bouncing, we've got Quick Play Link Summons into things like Unicorn, so we are absolutely set. There's no way our opponent could possibly break this board, unless they had that card specifically, Dark Ruler, unfortunately negates all monsters on our board. We're going to trigger our Spheres because its effect will still give us a Whitestone of Ancients. Our opponent's playing Sprite. This is really unfortunate for us. They're going to go into Centuria, take out our IP, Then they're going to go into Downward Magician and finally into Zeus, and they're just going to wipe the board. Very unfortunate that they had Dark Ruler. That this game did show off the vast majority of the combos, so I still wanted to include it, but you know, not really very much you can do about Dark Ruler no more. I believe we sit and we watch this turn for a little bit. He's going to go Swap Frog, dumping the Ronin, linking off into Sprite Elf. Pretty standard Sprite plays here. He's going to go into Vampire Retainer. This... Muted my microphone. This part I found pretty interesting about the Vampire Retainer and the Vampire Domination. That's pretty dope. I like that. We're going to go Melody. We're going to get negated, and I believe at this point, yeah, we just scoop it up. Yeah, 100%. There's only so much you can do about Dark Ruler no more, right? But it did show off a lot of the combos, show off a lot of the plays. It is quite a complex deck at first, but once you sort of spot the trends, it's really not that difficult because most of the plays are fairly intuitive. But yeah, there you go. That's a decent showing for game number 1. We did lose because of Dark Ruler, but it is what it is. Let's get into the next game. Alright, getting into game 2 here, much heavier emphasis on the blue eyes with this deck. It's hands like this. Initially we were playing sort of 3 and 2 just like Sam was in his video, but we ended up cutting these cards way down because we were seeing them far too often. Looks like we're up against Dark Magician, and that's really cool. I always love a little bit of blue eyes versus Dark Magician. Unfortunately for our opponent here, we're playing a real fancy version of Blue Eyes. They are going to bring out their Dark Magician, and they're going to have Timaeus handy as well, dumping their Soul Servant. Now they're going to Fusion Summon into Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, so they are matching us at least in terms of power here with our Blue Eyes. So that 3000 attack points, plus it protects all of his back row cards. He's going to pitch Slifer the Sky Dragon to the graveyard, and I don't know what's going on with that play, but... sign me up, Chief. I'm curious. We draw into Xiamen, which is amazing. We're going to dump Blue Eyes to grave to summon Blue Eyes out to the field. We know our opponent's face down card is the Eternal Soul, so we're not too worried about it since he doesn't have Circle, so that's fine. We're going to grab another Blue Eyes to our hand just to replace the card advantage we were dropping. We're going to ditch our Ancients to summon out Xiamen from deck. Xiamen's going to grab our Deer Note now revealing itself and Xiamen to summon itself out to the field. And now we get to Synchro Summon into the Chaos Ruler. So that's the big draw of the Punk engine. It enables you to go into your Chaos Ruler super consistently, while normally also putting another level 8 on your board, so you can then go into the Zombie Vampire afterwards. So it's almost like a mill 9 built in, which is pretty dope. I like it. We're going to grab Foxy 2 in the hand here. We're going to dump the rest of the cards off to the graveyard. We're going to use our Zombie Vampire here, detaching material, making sure our Chaos Ruler's in the graveyard. We're going to steal the Ash Blossom we sent off of his deck. We're now going to banish 2 for engrave to bring back the Chaos Ruler. Chaos Space is going to shuffle 1 back into the deck here, letting us draw an extra card. There's an emergency teleport, which is unfortunately not useful right now. We're going to go for our Harbinger, then we're going to Synchro Summon off into Psychic and Punisher. This isn't the play you would normally do, however, in this particular instance, we want to make sure we can clean up that Eternal Soul. They are going to use Eternal Soul here to bring back their Dragon Knight. We did sort of mess up here, actually. What we should have done is we should have crashed first with our Zombie Vampire to boost up our Harbinger's attack points, and then we would have dealt significantly more damage, but it is what it is, you know. It didn't make a massive difference. We're going to use our Psychic and Punisher, banishing itself as well as their Eternal Soul, and we're simply going to wait. Now we've got a Spell Negate and 6,000 attack points, and he's only got 2 cards left in hand. The reason we were comfortable doing that play is because we knew he only had 2 cards left. He's going to go into Rod here. Rod on normal summon's going to grab him the Dark Magical Circle. We knew with the Spell Negate we were going to be safe because the only way he was getting past us is with Circle. There's nothing else really in his deck he could do that's going to threaten our Hope Harbinger, so we knew as soon as we take his Circle, yeah, it's GG's. He can't do anything about that. So it seemed like a bit of a questionable play on the surface, I know, but again, with Dark Magician, literally the only card we're afraid of is the Eternal Soul. Sorry, the Dark Magical Circle. That was it. So yeah, pretty solid game, pretty cool. Dark Magician versus Blue Eyes. Love it when that happens, especially on the rank ladder. You don't really see a lot of Dark Magician in Diamond, for good reason, but it's nice to see a little bit of it there. So let's get into game 3. Already getting into game 3 here, a bit of an interesting hand, a little bit prone to interruption. We are going to drop our Blue Eyes and we're going to get Ash Blossomed on our trade-in, unfortunately. That's a bit rough. We really needed our Xiamen to resolve here, otherwise we are in a bit of bother. We're going to activate Xiamen, grabbing the Foxy Toon directly from the deck, which I'll now activate, pitching the White Stone of Ancients, of Legend, sorry. Legend's going to grab us our last remaining Blue Eyes White Dragon. We're going to Synchro Summon into Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. That's going to trigger both our Chaos Ruler and our Deer Note. Deer Note then is going to resurrect the Foxy Toon in the graveyard, giving us our second level 8. And then we've got the Chaotic Magical Dragon. So this is a good demonstration of like what a singular, just the Punk engine can do, right? Because we're able to use these two now to go into our Zombie Vampire. Zombie Vampire getting us an additional mill 4 basically, which is pretty solid, except this is when our opponent's going to go for the Gamma play. Gamma negating and destroying the Zombie Vampire, unfortunately, so that's a bit of a rough one for us. We are able to use the Chaos Ruler here in the graveyard, banishing 2 to resummon itself out to the field, so we're definitely not completely lost. We're going to use Plague Spreader as well, summoning it out. We're going to grab ourselves Baron de Fleur, and for some reason here we pop the... Oh no, we don't pop the Gamma, that was a different replay. That's fine. So we've got Baron de Fleur, not exactly perfect. He did time that Ogre really well, sorry, that Gamma really well. They're going to go Ogre Dance to grab Xiamen here. Xiamen then on summon's going to grab another Punk monster from their deck. Ogre Dance is another really good one if you want to expand on the Punk cards and reduce the Blue Eyes card. Ogre Dance is probably your next port of call. They're going to go into Protos, locking us out of Dark here. Unfortunately, we did summon our Baron de Fleur in defense position, meaning his Protos is big enough to get over it. Very, very unfortunate for us. Blue Eyes was the card stacked on top of our deck by the Plague Spreader. We swing in here. This wasn't exactly the greatest of plays because now our Ancients is going to summon out the Jet Dragon, but there's nothing stopping this Protos from simply popping all the light monsters and preventing them from being summoned here. We're going to speed up this turn a little bit. They're going to reveal Ogre Dance yet again, grabbing their whatever this one is. Either way, they normal summon out their Xiamen yet again, grabbing Foxy Toon. Foxy Toon then is going to activate its effect. Of course it is. Going to pitch itself to grave to summon out the Shark monster from the deck, bringing out Rising Carp. So this is obviously a pure Punk deck. So I don't know all of these cards off the top of my head right away, but they're going to tribute this to summon out Deer Note as well as Wagon. Pretty interesting. Wagon then is going to grab them a Punk spell card, being their Field Spell, which is pretty dope. Field Spell is basically a built-in Pot of Greed and a Monster Reborn, which is not Monster Reborn, sorry, it summons one from hand, which is still pretty damn dope. They're going to activate Deer Note and their new Jam Dragon, which is, again, just amazing. So a lot of these cards are just really cool. Grabbing Ghost Ogre from deck, which is incredible, being able to search for an interruption like that. They're going to pop our Dragon, stop us from summoning light monsters for the next bunch of turns, and they can just extend like crazy. They're going to search their deck for the trap card. I think at this point we sort of realize that there's no way we can catch back up to them. Yeah, it is. But no, the amount of advantage and power that this Punk deck can generate is incredible. I definitely think pure Punk is better than the Blue Eyes Punk. I don't have all of the cards necessary for the Punk deck, and people wanted me to cover the Blue Eyes version, which is what we're doing. But no, Punk is definitely, it's going to be a sleeper contender, so it is. I think Punk is a lot better than people are giving it credit for, and people are giving it credit. I'm not saying that everyone's saying it sucks. Everyone knows it's good, but I think it's even better than people are saying it is. I really do. But either way, let's get into game number 4. Alrighty, getting into our game 4 here, we're going to use, we're going up against Sprite. We're going second here. They're going to use Sprite Jet to grab themselves the Sprite starter before going off into Gigantic Sprite as they normally do. That is what we were saving our Ash Blossom for, so their Gigantic Sprite does not get to detach and does not get to summon, except maybe it does, you know. Call by the Grave is fine. We're going to let Call by the Grave, it's going to stop our Ash Blossom, which is pretty unfortunate. That means Sprite is essentially able to go balls deep here with absolutely zero consequence. They're going to summon out a Swap Frog from their deck. Swap Frog pitching the Ronin Totem. Then they're going to link 2 off into Sprite Elf. Sprite Elf getting the Resurrect, any level 2 from the graveyard. They're going to go for Carrot and not Swap Frog, which I thought was interesting. Summoning out the Ronin Totem now. They're going to go for Sprite Starter. Sprite Starter summons out Sprite Blue directly from the deck. Blue's going to search their deck for red. which is a free summon as well. Now they're going to link off into IP Masquerena, and I believe they're going to special out the red and pass. So they have quick play link, they have monster negate, they have spell trap negate. Pretty busted, as well as a monster reborn whenever they want. We're going to normal summon Siege. They're going to activate their Sprite Elf to try and revive their gigantic sprite. That is perfectly fine. You do you. That just basically gives them tribute fodder for their sprite effects, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. We're going to go Chaos Space. We're going to ditch a White Stone to grab ourselves a Black Dragon Collapsibant, and our White Stone's also going to grab us a Blue Eyes White Dragon, but that is what our Sprite Red chooses to negate, which on the surface seems like a bad negate, but it does actually stop us from using Trade-In. So it works out for our opponent here. We're going to go Foxy Toon, dropping our now useless Trade-In to summon out Xiamen. Xiamen's going to get stopped by the Imperm. Very unfortunate that our opponent still has the ability to negate plays. We're going to simply summon out our Collapsibant and then Synchro Summon into the Moonlight Dragon. We're forcing him to try and use the carrot here. Unfortunately, we couldn't target it because of Elf's effect. He's now going to activate his IP Masquerena in chain to the Black Rose Dragon, summoning out Mechanic Crusadia Avramax. Now, Avramax makes this a little bit more tricky. Moonlight Dragon, now we're going to Synchro Summon off yet again into our Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler then is going to try and pitch monsters from the top of our deck to the graveyard. We're hitting a bunch of them here, which is just fine. We're going to grab a Blue Eyes to hand purely because we want the Plague Spreader in the grave. We're going to return the Blue Eyes to summon the Plague Spreader so we can Synchro Summon off into Baron de Fleur. Baron de Fleur is going to pop the carrot. Now that we pop the carrot, we can safely activate Melody of Awakening Dragon to grab the Blue Eyes White Dragon as well as the alternative White Dragon straight out from the deck. We're now going to summon the alternative White Dragon, popping his monster here. As far as I am aware, we're going to go for the Chaos Ruler, summoning it out to the field first. Yeah, I do activate the effect to pop the red. Now we're going to link summon off into Seals. Seals is our out to Avramax because it's non-targeting bounce. We're going to draw one card off of Chaos Space, recycling our Chaos Ruler, which is pretty awesome. Now we can basically just go into... We're going to Baron de Fleur negate this, right? The Swap Frog is just going to start a whole cycle of advantage. He is going to try and go Sprite Smashers. We can't really deal with non-targeting banishment, so we're going to activate our Spheres, tributing itself as cost to bounce that Avramax back to the extra deck. And the Sprite Smashers does not stop him from being negated, so the Swap Frog does not resolve. Spheres is going to summon out Jet Dragon from our deck into defense mode onto the field. Its attack is reduced to 0, but that's whatever. And our opponent has no choice but to pass it back to us. He has no ability to make any plays. It's going to go Dictator of D. We're going to send a Blue Eyes from deck to graveyard. We're going to activate its effect to trade one in for a second Blue Eyes, summoning it out to the field. Now we're going to go Plague Spreader using our 2 level 8s. We're going to go into the Zombie Vampire, pitching 4 from both decks to the graveyard and resummoning Foxy Toon among them. And this is enough damage on board for a lethal, down to the exact amount of life points. 400 life points left, 400 damage, and there you go, beating full power Sprite. Pretty good. Again, just goes to show the deck has a lot of outs, has a lot of combo potential. This was the more modern version of the deck that was playing Siege and everything like that. So this is one of the versions that we ended up landing on. But no, really solid gameplay. Let's get into the deck list. Alright, we're going to do this deck list a little bit differently. I'm going to break this up into segments and cover each of them individually. So this is what I would consider to be the Blue Eyes package of the deck, if you will, right? So this is the Blue Eyes package. I know Levianeer's in here, but it is what it is. So the Blue Eyes White Dragon, of course, you can try playing 2 of this. I think 3 is maybe a bit much, to be honest, but whenever I was playing 2, I didn't want to run out of mill material for our Dictator. And again, you do have a ton of uses for him, off of like Trade-In and Foxy Toon and everything, pitching it to the graveyard. So it's not as if you're ever going to really suffer for running 3, but you can try running 2 if you want. It's up to you. We're playing 2 copies of Siege and 1 copy of each stone. Before this, we were playing 2 copies of each stone and no Siege at all. I think Siege is just a little bit better in terms of generating more advantage. You're constantly needing discard targets in this deck for your Melody, for your Trade-In, for your Foxy Toon, for your Deer Note. You constantly need to be discarding cards. So I feel like having Siege add one of these guys to hand, as well as giving you an extra body on board in order to, you know, like link someone off into something like that, is a little bit more valuable than just playing more of the stones. Because you don't really normal summon anything in this deck, right? You'll typically special summon almost everything in this deck. Dictator isn't a terrible normal summon, but it kind of is at the same time. And then Xiamen isn't a terrible normal summon, but you've got like a million ways to special summon it. So having a normal summon in here that generates you that little +1, every little plus helps. So I do definitely think double Siege, double Whitestone is fine. Dictator of D, of course, is absolutely broken. Sending a Blue Eyes monster, Blue Eyes White Dragon from deck or hand to graveyard to special summon him from hand. Then you can trade in one of your Blue Eyes cards in your hand to summon a Blue Eyes monster from your graveyard. So you'll send the White Dragon, Jet, Alternative, or your Whitestone of Legend to the graveyard to summon out one of your big Blue Eyes dragons from the grave, which is pretty dope. This card's amazing. We've got our Alternative White Dragon. Alternative White Dragon can pop a monster your opponent controls, and you can special summon it to your field simply by showing your opponent a Blue Eyes White Dragon in your hand. Really easy to summon. Then we've got the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, of course. So the Blue Eyes Jet Dragon will be special summoned to your field whenever any monster or card on the field is destroyed, and so long as it's face up, it protects all of your other cards from being destroyed by card effects. If it happens to be involved in a battle as well, once per turn you get to bounce a card back to your opponent's hand. So generally speaking, really good extender, really good sort of protection built into its effect, and it's just constant recursion every single turn. So the Jet Dragon, definitely a really powerful card. Then we've got Trade In. You can discard any level 8 to draw 2 cards. Foxy Toon is in your Punk Engine also is level 8, which is worth noting. So it's not just your Blue Eyes cards that are level 8. So you've got 6 Blue Eyes here, and you'll also have 3 Foxy Toon. There's a 9 level 8s that you can potentially discard off of your trade-in, which is absolutely amazing. And lastly, we've got the Melody of Awakening Dragon. Discard 1 card to add 2 of your big dragons from your deck to your hand. Pretty straightforward. That's why we're playing Chaos Dragon Levianeer. It can also be searched off of Chaos Space, which we'll get to in a minute. But being able to search for any of your big dragon extenders to continue making plays is awesome, especially considering it's 2 for 1, and many of your cards will have beneficial effects when discarded. So no, pretty solid for the Blue Eyes engine. Here's the Punk engine. So we're playing a relatively small Punk engine. We're playing 2 copies of Xiamen, which is sort of like your main monster, if that makes sense. The rest of these cards are just ways of getting to it. So Xiamen, then, you're going to pay 600 life points to add a Punk monster from your deck to your hand. It's also a level 3 tuner, which is very important. And the monster you're going to be adding from deck to hand is going to be your Dear Note. Dear Note is the next most important one. Whenever you can reveal this and any other Punk monster in your hand, special summon either of the 2 and then send the other one to the graveyard. Usually, though, you're going to summon this card. If it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can revive any Punk monster in your graveyard back to your field, so long as it's not a level 5, which is absolutely amazing. So normally, ideally, you're going to have the Foxy Toon in the graveyard, right? Because you're either going to ditch it for Dear Note's effect, or you're going to use Foxy Toon's effect, which we'll get to in a second, to grab your Xiamen, meaning it'll already be in the graveyard. So normally, you're going to use this effect, then you're going to summon out Dear Note, you're going to have Xiamen and Dear Note to synchro summon off into your Chaos Riddler. So there's your level 3, level 5. And then when this card goes to the graveyard for that synchro summon, you're then going to use its effect to resurrect the Foxy Toon from your graveyard if this is there. If it's not there for whatever reason, on the off chance, you can just resurrect one of your Xiamen and then use it as a level 3 extender into some of your other synchro plays. Hint, hint. So either way, Foxy Toon is amazing value. Then Dear Note is amazing value, as is Foxy Toon, to be honest, because you can discard this and any other card in your hand or on your field and summon out from your deck one of your Punk monsters, so long as it's not a level 8. So this is going to get you direct access to Xiamen, and then of course it means that this card will be in your graveyard for your Dear Note play, which is really big. So definitely 3 copies of Foxy Toon all the way. And finally, Emergency Teleport will basically let you special summon Xiamen straight from your deck, 0 cost, 0 issues. This card is amazing. So you only need a relatively small Punk engine. If you wanted to build upon the Punk engine, Ogre Dance is definitely one of the things you can do. It being a level 8 means it synergizes with Trade-In very well, and it will basically just help you get direct access to things like your Xiamen. The only thing is, that means you're sort of committing your normal summon to it almost, unless you have other ways of summoning it from hand. So, you know, it sort of is what it is. You pick your poison a little bit when it comes to that deck, but this is the only cards you need. These are the only ones you actually need to have, right? Lastly then, we're going to look at the Chaos Engine, as I call it. It's going to be 3 copies of Chaos Space. Chaos Space lets you ditch a light or a dark monster from your hand to the graveyard to grab a light or a dark monster to your hand that is either level 4 or 8, so long as that monster cannot be normal summoned or set. That means Wyver Burster, Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, that means your Chaos Dragon Levianeer, that means your alternative White Dragon, cards like that. So Chaos Space lets you just grab one of those powerful monsters straight from your deck, as well as having a secondary effect to banish itself to return a banished light or dark monster that cannot be normal summoned or set back to your deck to draw an additional card. So it's a bit of a +1 built in there as well. This is actually a really important effect because it helps you recycle your Chaos Ruler to have a ton of follow-up on the next turn. So definitely both effects are very important here, and because you're going to be milling out a whole bunch of your cards, there's a solid chance you're going to have at least one copy of this in your graveyard. Speaking of our Chaos Dragons, your White and Black Dragons are really straightforward. You simply banish a monster of the opposing attribute to summon it out, and when the monster goes to the graveyard, you search for its twin. So with a White Dragon, you banish a Dark to summon it, and when it goes to the graveyard, you search for your Black Dragon. With Black Dragon, you banish a Light to summon it, and when it goes to the grave, you search for the White Dragon. So it's a bit of a twin, sort of yin and yang sort of combination they've got going on there, which is pretty dope. Starlight Seaford then. So what this card does is this allows you to basically grab, it'll let you trade in your dragons, right? So you'll send dragons from your hand or field to the graveyard, then you can grab another dragon from your deck whose level totals the level of dragons that you send. So normally you're going to trade itself in to grab yourself one of your dragons, basically, one of your 2 Chaos Dragons, or you can potentially trade in one of your level 8s to grab another level 8 from the deck. So if you've got maybe a Jet Dragon in hand and you need a Vanilla Blue Eyes, well, you can do just that, or vice versa, you can trade in a Vanilla Blue Eyes for a Jet, which is typically more useful. I don't know why I said them in that order, but yeah, no, Seaford is pretty good at just getting you the cards you want to be seeing. Out of one of, it's not that sort of bad. Usually it's a good card to add to your hand off of the Chaos Ruler's effect, and it also has a decent graveyard where you can add a level 8 light or dark dragon from your graveyard back to your hand by banishing it. So it also has that effect for example, if you mill it off of something like your Chaos Ruler or off of your Zombie Vampire. So a lot of value to be held in this card for sure. And lastly, we've got Plague Spreader Zombie, who you basically want to mill this card from your deck to the graveyard off of your Chaos Ruler or off of your Zombie Vampire, so you can use its effect to resummon it back from the graveyard. It's a level 2 tuner. It just makes summoning your Baron de Fleur super easy. So absolutely, this is the Chaos Engine. And lastly, these are the auxiliary cards, as we call them. We don't really have a ton of room for hand traps in this deck. It is very tight. So we're just playing 3 Ash Blossom to stop ourselves from getting hit with Max C, and we're playing a couple of Call by the Grave just to try and protect our combos. You can typically play 3 interruptions, so you don't want to use your Call by the Grave on like something that's relatively weak. You want to see if your Call by the Grave for choke points or when they're going to hit you with something that really hurts. So no, this is basically all we need at the minute. It's all we have room for, but to be honest, it's all we kind of need. Getting into the extra deck then, we're going to start with our Synchro monsters. We're going to start with the Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, level 7, so basically it's just here to be a really powerful generic level 7 monster. If it's summoned or whenever your opponent summons a level 5 or higher monster, you're going to target a special summon monster in the field, bounce it back to the hand. Not super useful in the Sprite matchup, to be honest. That's the one matchup where it isn't really all that good. But in most other duels, this is pretty handy. Bouncing a card back to your opponent's hand once per turn is solid. We're going to go for Chaos Ruler next, which is definitely the most important Synchro monster in the deck for sure. This card, on summon, you're going to mill the top 5 cards of your deck, and if there's a light or a dark monster in there, you get to add one of them to your hand, which is absolutely amazing. You can also resummon himself from the graveyard by banishing a light and a dark monster from the grave. So this guy is insane. Not only does sending a bunch of cards from deck to graveyard generate you a ton of advantage, it also helps you search out most of your really useful cards, like your Foxy Tune or your alternative or whatever it is you need to search for. It can get you access to if you don't already have access to it, and the resummoning of itself means that it is phenomenally easy to either A, be resummoned as material after being used for the zombie vampire, or B, to resummon itself to be used as material for the zombie vampire. So this card is absolutely incredible. Chaos Ruler is amazing, for sure. Plus you can recycle it back to your extra deck using Chaos Space. Love to see it. Then we got the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, which ironically you're not going to summon very much in this version of the deck. He basically, once per turn, he can negate a card effect that activates in the graveyard, and it stops either player from summoning 2 or more monsters at the same time, which isn't really a significant restriction, to be honest. So we don't really care too much about this card. It's not key to this deck, to be honest with you. You could probably tag this card out for a different level 9, like maybe... I was really thinking about playing Shen Shen in its place. This card here, I was thinking about playing this in its place, just as a bit of a generic sort of floodgate. But it is entirely buyer's choice here. It can also tag itself out to quick play summon out the Black Rose Moonlight Dragon if you need to, but just bear in mind the Moonlight Dragon will be destroyed at the end of that turn, so it's not exactly advisable, but it does give you at least the option. Then we've got Baron de Fleur, a once while face up Omni Negate, and once per turn you get to target a card on the field and destroy it. That is a spell speed 1 effect, that is not a quick effect. This card is really solid. Super easy to summon off of Plague Spreader and any of your million level 8 monsters. So it's very easy to summon. Getting that extra Omni Negate is of course very good. It destroys the card it negates, which is going to help limit your opponent's plays and follow-ups in a meta filled with extra deck spam. And being able to target a card in the field once per turn and destroy it does come up. It's actually decently useful, so absolutely. Baron de Fleur is a fantastic card. And lastly, our brand new Synchro monster, the Psychic End Punisher. So the big thing about this card is that so long as your opponent has more life points than you do, this guy is unaffected by activated effects. So that's a big deal. Plus, he's absolutely huge. So he's got 3,500 attack normally. And whenever you go into the battle phase, you can actually have him gain attack points equal to the difference between your life points and your opponent's life points. So this guy can get real big real fast. He also has one last effect where you can pay 1,000 life points to banish one of your monsters and one of your opponent's monsters, one of your opponent's cards, one of your monsters, one of their cards, which is extremely versatile, so it gives them a little bit of spot removal as well, and lowering your life points ideally is going to put you in a position where either A, you're going to boost up his attack points even more, or B, you're going to make your life points lower than theirs, making him unaffected by activated effects, whichever sort of the situation and game state demands. So no, this card is absolutely phenomenal, and as a level 11 monster, it means that you're not really ever in a position where you don't have the correct levels on your field. You know, we've got 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 in our extra deck, so realistically, it doesn't matter what you're summoning, you're almost always going to have the ability to synchro summon into something useful. Getting into our Exceed monsters, we've got 3 all rank 8s. We got number 38, Hope Harbinger, which is a once per turn spell negate. We've got number 90, which is a once per turn monster negate. And we've got our Zombie Vampire, which once per turn can detach a material to send the top 4 cards of either player's deck to the graveyard. And then you get to pick a monster from any of those 8 cards and summon it to your field, which is absolutely amazing. So this card, usually you're going to summon this after you summon out your Chaos Ruler, and it's going to grab you another monster to continue to extend and bring your plays out more and more and more. So the Zombie Vampire is amazing for sure. We got Striker Dragon, which is a Link monster, primarily here for our little Chaos Dragon combo. So whenever you summon one of the Chaos Dragons, you can link it off into Striker Dragon. That's going to trigger your Chaos Dragon to search your deck for its twin, and then you can summon its twin, and suddenly you've got 2 monsters on your board instead of just 1. So it's just a little bit of a toolbox card for your Chaos Dragons. The Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres is awesome in this deck, honestly. You'll basically tribute this card to bounce one of your opponent's cards back to their hand as a quick play effect, and then once you do that, you're able to summon out any dragon from your deck so long as you reduce its stats to 0. So if you want to summon out a really useful card like your Whitestone if you haven't already used them, or your Jet Dragon if it's not already in play, then you can summon out some really useful cards off of this. So it bounces and then replaces itself, which is awesome. We got Nightmare Phoenix, which is just a generic Link monster. IP Masquerena is really solid in this deck. Usually you're going to use Masquerena and Seals in tandem. Seals is going to bounce a card and summon out a monster, and then Masquerena is going to link off with that monster. to go it during your opponent's turn as a quick play effect, Link Summon, and normally the monster you're going to summon is Nightmare Unicorn, which when summoned you will discard a card to target a card in the field and spin it back into the deck. So phenomenal little combo with these little cards here, really good plays. And then lastly we have our 2 Link 4s, we have Apollousa, because you can flood your board effectively. If you need to, you can go into a 4 material Apollousa relatively easily, to be honest. It's not that difficult. And we have Access Code Talker, which of course has amazing OTK potential, boosting its attack points up, potentially the 5300 and popping a whole bunch of cards on the field. Access Code Talker is insane. If you don't know what this card does, then you've very clearly never played Master Duel before, because this card is everywhere. But yeah, that is the full deck. Is the deck foolproof? Is it the best deck in the game? Is it the best way to play Blue Eyes? Is it the best way to play Punk? First of all, stop asking me so many goddamn questions. Secondly, no, it's no to all of those. I think that it's definitely going to be a contender for the best way to play Blue Eyes. I don't know for sure. I would need to test a few different variants out. This is super solid though, right? And as far as Blue Eyes goes, is that the best way to play Punk? Not in a million years. Not in a million years. It definitely is not. Pure Punk is better than this deck, hands down. But I mean, come on, it's just cool. The Blue Eyes White Dragon, that's the whole point of it. But no, so this deck it's probably one of the better ways of playing Blue Eyes. It's definitely not the best way to play Punks. It's not going to be rocking the meta. It's not taking the meta by storm. It's not the best deck in the game. But it is definitely a ton of fun and a real solid contender if you want to get your Blue Eyes on. So that's my thoughts on the deck. That's the deck list and profile that we've come up with so far. I know I edited this one a little bit differently. If you like the style in which we did this one, let me know down below. If you have any other questions or anything you want to throw at me, suggestions, criticisms, whatever it is, you just want to tell me how your day went, you can do it in the comments below as well, or hop into the Discord where we can have a bit of a chat there. Either way, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.